Street Green Summit for 19 years. And this morning, we'd like to acknowledge the passing of Barry Worthington of the United States Energy Association. Barry supported this event for 19 years. He was a great man, and I just want to acknowledge his support for this event. Today was the beginning of 39 presentations on sustainable finance. This event will run all week, and we are very grateful for all the speakers that are giving their time. I want to also highlight that we will have the 20th annual Wall Street Green Summit in April, and it will be twice as big with 80 speakers. I also want to acknowledge our sponsors, beginning with NYSERDA, which has been very supportive of this event, as well as Expro Technologies, Aqua Bounty, ESG IQ powered by MZ Group, Greenworks Lending, Constellation Energy, Avalon Advanced Materials, Hodgson Rush Attorneys, CPL Group, Power to Hydrogen, Zinc 8, World Tree, The Naked Collective, Impact Metropolis, Save Energy Systems, and Connective Earth. Something strange happened in finance last year. We began to see a real embrace of ESG and impact investing for the first time. I've worked in impact and ESG and sustainability for 45 years in my career, and we started to see saturation of media coverage on the climate crisis and obviously now COVID. The world seems to have the need to personify these issues with Greta at the UN or Al Gore or Mike Bloomberg. But my own opinion is this has been the culmination of many decades of very good people doing very hard work on energy, food, and water, which are happen to be the world's largest businesses, and working on water and air quality. These are thousands of forgotten good people who have made this happen. Today, sustainability is mainstream. ESG, impact investing, the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, of which there are 17, these are things that people are embracing around the world. So the macro themes we're starting to see are the challenges of climate change are not real and material. The more severe storms, the fires on the west coast of the United States and Australia, which come back every year, the severe flooding, the famines, the droughts. Time is not on our side. It's time for the world to take action, and there is plenty of dry powder in the capital markets. What seems to be missing is leadership, and we need to scale technology today in energy, food, and water. More capital needs to be deployed, and we also need more knowledge capital, which frankly is more scarce. We need the decarbonization of the global economy, and we're seeing the beginning of the energy transition underway. We're seeing the emphasis on fossil energy as a stranded asset, something I said 30 years ago, and people thought I was a madman, talking about oil and coal not being produced. We have too much energy in the ground. The reality is it'll never be produced. The madness that we're going to be drilling on the north slope of Alaska is silly. It's too expensive to drill there, just like we're not drilling for coal in the Appalachian Train because there's no need for coal. The economics don't pencil out. The reality is we are seeing the beginning of a business transformation, a movement away from fossil energy and a movement more toward renewable energy, more toward energy efficiency, more toward electrification and electric vehicles, more toward energy storage, and more toward hydrogen. Everybody says hydrogen, it's 10 years away. Not true. We're going to see the beginning of the hydrogen economy for trains and automobiles and trucks and ships. Now, why hydrogen? Because hydrogen doesn't make emissions. It makes water vapor. I worked on the Prius with Toyota in 1997 and 98. At that time, hydrogen fuel cell vehicle cost $1 million. They've gotten that cost down to 40K. All of the original equipment manufacturers, be they BMW, Daimler, Hyundai, Toyota, can make the cars. Frankly, we lack infrastructure to make hydrogen, and hydrogen is a twofold solution. It can be used as a fuel and it can be used for energy storage. So where we are sitting today is COVID has added much more uncertainty to this equation on where clean tech goes. In my opinion, it actually is going to accelerate the need for sustainability. And on top of that, you have, in my opinion, a new asset class emerging called impact investing. Impact investing means investing with a purpose, an environmental purpose, a social purpose, creation of jobs for humanity. And you're going to see next year, the beginning of the United States once again emerging from the rubbish in Washington into a mission of the EPA that human health and welfare comes number one. The protection of people's health becomes very seminal and important because people are scared when disease is rampant. And clean energy now has arrived. So last year, 2019, we saw $363.2 billion deployed globally in clean energy, according to Bloomberg New Energy Finance. That's only 5% of global energy spend. The global energy industry is a $6 trillion business, the world's largest business. Over the past decade, $2.6 trillion was deployed in clean energy. That's 2010 to 2019. That was led by solar and wind, and that was led by China and the United States. It's a need here is to put $1 trillion a year to work to really make this thing rock. We have barely scratched the surface on a transition and a business transformation. Green bonds passed $1 trillion last December, according to the Financial Times. Investors are lining up to buy green bonds. They are oversubscribed. So why do you ask, why now? Why are people interested in clean and green and sustainability? Because there's been a change in human consciousness. Millennials and younger generations get it. They're not going to wait 40 years for change. I stood in Pittsburgh in 1970 with my solar powered t-shirt on April 22nd, Earth Day, when I went to Carnegie Mellon University. That's 50 years ago. It's been a long slog to get where we are today. It's the timing to move. Car sharing, electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles, these will be mainstream in this decade. And people focusing on plastic straws is ridiculous. It's no more plastic bottles. It's no more gyres in the ocean destroying fisheries. It's vegans and meat alternatives. For example, I don't eat red meat anymore because cows take up a lot of surface area and create greenhouse gases. Social enterprise and impact investing have finally arrived. 5 years ago, I was working with the World Economic Forum. It was just the beginning of this. Today, it's time to invest with a purpose. This is young people. This is older people. This is not impact philanthropy. This is not giving to the Red Cross when there's a tsunami or an earthquake. This is making money, doing the right thing, as we say in New York. And this is a financial return model that makes money in clean energy, in waste to energy, in clean water, in sustainable agriculture. So the way forward is we now have a dominant market share emerging for renewable energy. We have stranded assets for oil and coal. Last week, I was on a telephone call in Calgary where there is a company that's looking at solar and wind farms. They can get those financed, but they can't get their oil and gas reserves financed, their production. Pension funds don't want to touch fossil energy anymore. It's like cigarettes and tobacco were a pariah industry 40 years ago. We're looking at more resilience for the climate change economy and the disease economy. Most of you don't realize that infectious disease and climate change are correlated. 20 years ago, I was working with Harvard Medical School, Swiss Re, and Columbia University on the correlation of infectious disease and climate change. Disease that was eradicated up till 1990 was reemerging. The hantavirus, diphtheria, SARS, and MRSA started reappearing because insect-borne and waterborne. And of course, now we have COVID. There's a correlation, and the next wave of pandemics, plural, can be exacerbated by climate change. We cannot silo a problem by saying, make it not be true. We have to face the facts that climate change and infectious disease are real and material, and we need to scale solutions now. This decade, we have the money, we have the technology. Do we have the wherewithal to move? And it's time that government sets a stage and unleashes the private sector. When I was 26 years old, I worked with the EPA on getting lead out of gasoline. Lead, a known carcinogen, which hurts children's health. The government did not tell, this is the US government, the EPA, did not tell industry how to make unleaded fuels. It let industry solve that problem. Now, I went to an engineering school, Carnegie Mellon. Engineers solve problems. And guess what happened? The engineers solved that problem. There were no lead shortages. And I went all over the world talking about fuel reformulation. I went to every dirty energy conference in Asia starting in 1993. And guess what happened? Governments stepped in and took the lead out of gasoline, which helped children's health. On top of that, what you saw was the unintended consequence of reducing crime in the inner cities because there was no attention deficit disorder. No one predicted that 45 years ago. The point being, a cleaner and safer environment creates greater benefits for society. So here we are at this conference, which is about innovation in finance, led by solution providers, practitioners. Please enjoy the next 5 days and learn. This is not theory. This is not ideas that don't work. Thank you very much for joining us today.